What's up, and welcome to That's Enough, the show full of sports topics that we just can stop talking about. I'm Mike, he's Steve. I'm coming to you live from Citi Field. Well, not live by the time you hear this. So if you hear any weird music going on, it's the Mets getting ready for a game tonight. Steve, as usual, coming to us from a hotel room somewhere touring across the continent.
I'm in Winnipeg. Don't be jealous.
Oh, man, bucket list. I've actually never been to Winnipeg, so give me recommendations once you're done. But yeah, so if anything's different or sounding or looking out of the ordinary, you know why, because we're not in our normal recording spots. But let's get to our topic this week. It's one that Steve and I are actually sharing. And Steve, you threw this in our production doc like months ago. And I had something, we were just waiting for the right moment, the right things to pin it to. And I had something this week that did that for me. But I'm curious where you want to take it and in what direction you want to fit it into the show. You want to talk about gatekeeping fandom. So hit me. What does this do for you?
So I used to be, partially at fault for this. The idea of, I remember I had a friend of mine in high school who he got accepted into Johns Hopkins, and he was like, oh, I'm going to be an Oriole fan. And I was like, what do you mean you're going to be an Oriole fan? You're just going to suddenly start rooting? Come on. You spend your life rooting for one team. And I was being gatekeeped.
For those who don't know, Johns Hopkins in Maryland, so I guess Baltimore.
Yes, it is in Baltimore, so it does make sense. It'd be weird to be like, he got in the Carnegie Mellon and suddenly he became an Orioles fan.
Right.
It's I realize that like sports at their core are entertainment, and whether you are a casual fan or you're a diehard, if you're enjoying yourself, let someone enjoy themselves. Now, I'm not. I don't like when people pretend that they are more of a fan than they are. But if you are a fan and you're okay with whatever level of a fan you are, we should be too.
So I want to agree with you. And on paper, I do. On paper, I feel like you should be able to root for any team you want, for any reason you want, at any time you want. But then when it comes to it, in practice, I get this like guttural feeling sometimes where like someone's trying to jump on the Mets bandwagon now. All right, well, were you there when Kirk Neuenhuis was the team's best hitter?
Well, wait.
Right?
Wait. I'm not encouraging bandwagoning. That's a completely different topic.
So that's separate.
That we should talk about at some point. Like the idea of becoming a fan just because a team is suddenly good is a little ridiculous. But I just mean that like, you don't have to watch every game to be a fan. You don't have to.
Got it.
You don't have to have ever been to a game in person to be a fan. There are a million ways to follow a team now. And you can follow a team a little bit casually, or you can know who Kirk Neuenhuis is.
And if you could spell it, even more points for you.
Yeah.
This reminds me a bit of music, right? The fan of a band that they saw playing in garages when they first got started, and then goes to their Madison Square Garden show, and they get a little defensive because the person next to them just knows the two songs from the radio, whereas that person knows every single deep cut from every acoustic album they've ever done. And all right, so even though we've changed my topic because bandwagoning is different from gatekeeping the way you're defining it, I do kind of still feel like it's okay to be defensive there because you've kind of put in the work. If you are watching every single game, I can see an argument where you feel like you deserve more of a piece of the pie when the team does well because you're committing more to it.
What you feel you deserve, I think, is independent as to how other people enjoy it. And look, in was it 96 when the Yankees made the World Series for the first time in 15 years? I was in high school. And, there was a kid running around being like, we've been waiting 15 years. And I was like, dude, you're 14. Shut up. Like, you're pretending right now. You have been waiting 6 years max, But, and I understand the idea of getting frustrated when someone wants more of their share of the fandom, if that makes sense. At the same time, look, as a long-suffering Mets fan, I want other people to be Mets fans. That's what I want. Like, and it's the same with a band. You want that band that you love to be successful. You want to get it to the point where you're annoyed by filthy casuals. Like that's success. And there was even a point where, like, okay, just yesterday, um, Arian Foster, who I've become friends with, and he had thrown a first pitch for the Brewers, and I've thrown a first pitch for the Brewers, so I was like, talking a little trash, and I asked him, I was like, "How did this even happen? Like, what? How did you end up in Milwaukee? You're from Albuquerque, you live in Houston. Like, why are you in Milwaukee?" And he's like, "Well, I never really followed baseball. I wanted to pick a team. The Brewers seemed fun to watch, and I've become a Brewers fan." And I was teasing him a little bit, and I was like, "I wish I could have tricked you into being a Mets fan with me." But I respect that. Let him be a fan. That's fine. You picked his team. That's great.
That part, like I said, on paper, I get it. The more the merrier. The more people under the tent, we're all pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, part of me still feels like, once that World Series parade happens, some people should be, because of their bona fides, able to stand in the front row of that parade versus others that maybe have to watch from home on TV.
Oh,
And
wouldn't I
I'm
love?
probably a terrible person for this.
No, no, no. If parade rows, or even World Series tickets were doled out based on trivia about the team, that would be phenomenal.
Now that would be a meritocracy in sports fandom that we can get behind, right?
That would
Um,
be so fantastic if it was like, "Hey, you want to go to the World Series? All right, tell me who Rafael Santana was."
Right, exactly. And I think we saw this a lot with the Knicks, with their run to the Eastern Conference Finals because it's New York City, it's trendy, all the celebrities are there and they show up, and everybody's like, "Yeah, man, let's go Knicks!" Like we're doing it for the Boroughs, and it's like, okay, were you there when, you know, I don't know, I can't even. I'm trying to think of like Steve
Hell, were you
Novak.
there
Like Steve Novak was
with
their
the
best
Knicks?
player, like
With the Knicks, were you there 2 years ago? They
right
were
as
terrible
recently as
two
that.
years ago.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Were
So
were you there when we were excited about Chris Tapps when he's turned out to be awful? Yeah, I get what you are saying, but I do think that at the core, sports are entertainment, and let people have their fun.
and everyone lives their individual truth, I guess. So if that's what makes you a fan of that team, and but also if I feel like that's not what my fandom correlates with, then I have that right to think that. You have that right to think that. But I do have what I think is an interesting twist that I want to
Okay,
present to you, which is what
I'm
inspired
in.
me to do this episode this week. We'll do it after our fake ad read. This week's episode brought to you by the FIFA Club World Cup. Are you not familiar with this newfangled tournament? Do you not care about it? Guess what? Neither do any soccer fans. FIFA Club World Cup coming to American shores like any day now. So that's what it is, soccer for me. So, quick
Yeah,
background. I am a dual citizen, Portuguese. My dad was born there. My mom was born in the U.S., but all of my grandparents were born there. I have a passport for both countries. And America, historically, not a great soccer country. So
no,
Portugal, as a soccer country, was something that my grandfathers would watch. I've been watching those games since I was a kid, so I always gravitated to that national team at World Cups and things like that. And they just played Spain this past week in the Nations League, which is another overly contrived tournament that the FIFA powers that be have come up to create to just grind these players' kneecaps to dust in the pursuit of more
yeah,
money. But that's a topic for a different episode. So, what happens a lot with me, and we go to World Cups, my family, we make it like a family trip. We go to European championships and stuff. And you see a lot of fans of these national teams who are not of that nationality, even going back, generations. It's someone from Bangladesh that doesn't really have a men's soccer program to speak of, so to say,
yeah,
but they'll go to a World Cup, and because they love Ronaldo or Messi, they'll become Portugal or Argentina fans, and they'll paint their face and they'll wear the shirts and all that stuff. And I was wondering where you fall on this. Is national team sports like, can you be Japanese and root for Team USA at the basketball Olympics because they have LeBron and you're a LeBron fan? Or is
you
this the
sure?
one difference where, and I don't want to veer into identity politics and, nationalism and citizenship too much, but
Yeah.
is that something where you can see a bit of wiggle room in terms of gatekeeping fandom more?
I think you absolutely can, because especially, like, look, as someone who, grew up a St. John's basketball fan, I had to find other college teams to root for because St. John's wasn't playing most of the time. And so, as someone who grew up in New York City, I had to find a college football team because there's no decent college football team
Right.
within a 4-hour drive of New York. My apologies, Rutgers. It
Or
is,
Syracuse, my alma mater, which alternates between
yeah,
being really good or really, really bad.
also 5 hours away and also really bad. Anyway, but um, it's it is something where, look, I went to the American Baseball Classic, or the World Baseball
Well,
Classic, I
yeah.
mean, and because I wasn't able to get tickets to watch the American team, I ended up watching, I think it was Cuba versus Dominican Republic. And
Mm.
at first I was rooting for Dominican Republic just because there were some players on the team that I liked. But the way that Cuba was playing, they had this like small ball hustle style of play that I loved. They were so exciting. I ended up rooting for Cuba throughout that tournament. And there are so many
Okay,
reasons.
okay, communists. You guys hear all your Steve Hofstetter fans? Cuba
Exactly,
fan
yeah.
right here
Ab-
on wax.
Absolutely. Yeah, specifically because of Castro. Starling
Absolutely.
Castro. But so the there are so many reasons why you can end up rooting for a team, especially if you don't have one in the tournament. And that's true for any American soccer fans. Once you hit the semifinals, you're not rooting for the States in the World Cup. And
Semifinals is
so
very optimistic, Steve. I don't think it's ever. It
I'm
hasn't happened since 1950. I don't think.
yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
ever. So once you get to ever. And so there are certain things, most college sports fans are people who never went to that college. And I think that there are a lot of reasons to root for teams. And as long as you're going about it honestly, that's what I want from a fan.
Yes.
Honesty. Whether it is because they're casual or because they go, hey, my favorite player is of that ethnicity and plays for that world team. So therefore, I root for that world team, especially because Bangladesh isn't in the cup.
That the college thing is a good point too, because that's a similar type of thing. Are you allowed to root for Duke basketball when you went to, let's say, Rutgers, and you just decide, you know what, Duke was good when I was a kid? Do you have to be an alum of that school, or have your parent be an alum to have that entry point to rooting for that? And I guess it's about how you go about it, which
Yeah.
that's kind of the point we can agree on. If you're gonna, like, I have a cousin who is a big Duke basketball supporter, has zero connection to them at all. But then whenever Duke plays Syracuse and Duke beats Syracuse, he lets me hear it as if he spent 4 years there and is in crippling student loan debt and that he's earned that right. And it's like, dude, you've never even been in the state of North Carolina. It's and it just
Maybe
it that.
he just loves schools that produce a good sixth man. I mean, it's possible.
But
I
but I'm not going to touch that. But those who know
sorry,
know.
I'm a UNC fan. That
Yeah.
was my shout.
But if you're coming through it, and again, and you hear this a lot in society, do the work, right? If you're going to
Yeah,
be a fan of a country's team that you don't come from, a college that you didn't belong to, a random professional team just because you moved to town or whatever, do a little, watch the best of documentaries, find out some of their best players, take a tour of the stadium or the arena, like. I don't know, like earn your stripes, I guess is what I hope to encourage people to do.
yeah, and I think that would be great if everybody did that. But also, I'll give you an example where I went to Madrid, and I loved it. I loved the city. It was amazing. I got to spend a couple days there. I can't wait to go back. In the airport, there was a pretty inconsequential national game where Spain was playing. And these 20 of the loudest, most obnoxious people were in the airport screaming about Spain. And it's like, the game was 4 hours ago. Shut up. And they were so annoying that at that point, I was like, I want Spain to lose their next game. I don't have anything against the
You're
team historically.
a fan out of spite.
I literally just wanted those guys to feel a little bit of pain. That's what I wanted. And that's okay too. I think that there are, like you said earlier, there's a ton of different reasons to like a team or not like a team. And I used to gatekeep fandom, and I try not to now.
Yeah, and if I'm the worst man here, then you let me have it, all of you guys, and Steve is the one that's going to hold your hand into your new fandom.
Plenty of people are going to agree with you who listen to this.
Yeah.
Plenty of people are going to tell me that I'm soft and that you're the real fan. It
Uh,
happens.
But again, we're both right, and that's the beauty of sports. This doesn't affect anyone's actual livelihood like the same kind of argument in politics or lawmaking. So that's why we do this show. He's Steve. I'm Mike. Follow us at That's Enough Show on all your favorite social media platforms. Hit us up at that'senoughshow@gmail.com. And Steve, talk to you next time.
See you next time.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all, and that's enough.